Welcome, school committee members, members of the administration, guests. The time is 6:00 p.m., and I'd like to call to order the December 16th, 2025 School Committee FY27 Budget Public Hearing held at Stoughton Public Schools District Office. We have a quorum present, so let's begin. This meeting is being recorded by SMAC for future broadcasting. Please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to read the Stoughton School Committee operating norms. Agree to disagree, assume positive intent, be outcome-driven, be prepared, be respectful, celebrate our wins, the district and each other, challenge the issue, not the person, have fun, manage time wisely, put students first, resolve the issues during the meeting, speak from one's own perspective, and speak with one voice. Thank you. This public hearing is being held in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Part 1, Title 12, Chapter 71, Section 38N. The school committee of each city, town, or regional school district shall hold a public hearing on its proposed annual budget not less than 7 days after publication of the notice therein in a newspaper having general circulation in such city, town, or district. Prior to such public hearing, said committee shall make available to the public at least one copy of said proposed budget for a time period of not less than 48 hours, either at the office of the superintendent of schools or at a place so designated by said committee, at the time and place so advertised, or at any time or place to which such hearing may from time to time be adjourned. All interested parties shall be given an opportunity to be heard for or against the whole or any part of the proposed budget. Such hearing shall be conducted by a quorum of the school committee. For the purposes of this section, a quorum shall consist of a majority of the members of said school committee. Requirements for public participation. If anyone wishes to make a comment, there is a sign-up sheet near the entrance of the meeting room. Comments must be confined to 3 minutes or less. At 6:30, sign-up for public comment will be closed. Now I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Baeta, who will provide an overview of the proposed FY27 budget.
Madam Chair, thank you so much to you and the committee. I'd just like to read the affidavit of a publication, the State of Massachusetts, County of Norfolk, the Patriot Ledger, newspaper printed and published in the city of Quincy, and of general circulation in the County of Norfolk, State of Massachusetts, and personal knowledge of the facts herein stated, and that the notice hereto next was published in said newspaper in the issue of 12/4/25. And to that into the record that we have met the compliance of the public hearing.
Thank you.
Before you tonight is a continuation of the discussion, as you know, that has been taking place. There's not a lot of new news, except that we know that we will continue internally after your vote to work on this budget as a draft budget. It goes after tonight in your approval. It goes as a package, if you will, with all of the information that we can provide. We're still waiting on our enrollment information from NESDEC. It's a little later than usual this year, but our packets are due on the 31st, at least electronically, to the Select Board, the Finance Committee, and the Town Manager, and of course it'll be sent to you as well, and then I will make hard copies after the first of the year for any third parties that wish to have it, including yourselves. Please know that the 5 areas that we've been discussing for a number of months now as an administration, and then working with Jillian as part of the working group, continue to be the same. We know that our special education issues and our costs and mandates are significant. We know that we have, with that, transportation increases. We are currently in negotiations with Unit A and Unit B, and that's the reason why that line item under contract services for superintendent is what it is, because that's where we put some funds. Our enrollment trends in special education, EL, out of district, continue to move upward in terms of service delivery needs, and we have seen an actual increase in our IEP increases from this summer until now. We are also, just to let you know, as of this week, and it is only Tuesday, we are starting to see a increase in our ELL population. If you remember, right from before the holidays through mid-January, end of January, we have certain populations that come back or re-enroll or are actually new to the system. We actually had 3 students enroll yesterday into today, just as an example. We have no increases to general education staffing, and I want to make that very, very clear. In your current role as a custodian, as a paraprofessional, as a classroom teacher, as a support staff member, as an administrator, there are no gains to those FTEs. They are maintained the same, which speaks to, I think, us knowing that we're trying to do the right thing, but at the same time are dealing with some issues. So our budget that we forwarded last year through you was not approved at town meeting. The actual budget that was approved at town meeting was about $1.3 million less that we had to utilize in order to get to level services, if you will. So our starting budget for this year was $67,256,251. And our recommended budget is $73,077,362, which is a significant 8.66% increase to our budget. Recognizing that we are adding literally 0 people in general education and EL, we are literally talking about the issue of special education service delivery and then costs and increases. So our recommended budget at 3.5%, as recommended by the town manager's presentations, would be at $69,610,220. From the vote you take tonight at $73,077,362, we are short $3,467,142. I'm using the word shortfall because our budget is an increase at 3.5%. It is an increase at 8.66%. So we're not at a point where we're just getting the same amount of money we're getting next year. That we got this year. So I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. This is an increase, but that increase is currently $3,467,142 short as of today, not knowing prior discussions we've had that we've had publicly around that we don't know what our numbers will be from the last line item, which is pending House 1 legislative recommendations on all of that comes in 26. I want to speak real briefly to this issue that is concerning to me, and I want to make sure that you have it and the public has it. The town of Stoughton was provided a crisis situation with hundreds of families and hundreds of students in our shelters, 2 shelters in town. We received $105 per student unless they enrolled by October 1st. So that first group that came in September got enrolled by October 1st, but if they didn't come in until December or January, we got the $105. If they were there the following October, then they went into the October 1st. The reason why I'm bringing that up is the budget is grounded at the state level on what? Enrollment. If you have increased enrollment, you typically see more money, and then you balance that with all the high needs and the low income and all of the different parts that go into the formula. I am concerned that not only the town of Stoughton, but the only town, because everybody else in the top 5 was a city, the only town, that we could see the formula hit us in a negative way, but all we did was to stand by the children that we were provided, that we had to educate. I really want the town, both our partners on the town hall side, but our town meeting members and our parents and so on, that if the formula comes out as a hold harmless formula, which means the minimum amount, which I don't think it'll be for us, I think it'll be a little bit more than that, but not the traditional, it will be solely because of the loss of those students being considered a, quote, drop in enrollment, because that's how the process works. So I want to make sure that we have that information as a working team, school committee, superintendent, business office, that we all have that as a core fundamental problem that we may see in the foundation budget coming to us from the state. And we're going to have to put our heads together and get our partners on the town side and you folks to really say to the legislature, hey, we got put into a crisis, we did our job, and we did it well. And those students are now left us, and you're hurting us for the remaining students that we have, which, by the way, still sees slight increases in enrollment. So the 1,000 line is the big line. It's got the Unit A and the Unit B. I won't get into that. Shelter funds already being utilized, circuit breaker being utilized, and then the general no areas. I just want to make sure that people are very clear about that in terms of general education. What we do find, and I apologize, this is a little small. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. What we do find is a few line items within special ed. So line item 1 will not change, regardless of how good or bad the budget is. 2 classrooms, 4 paraprofessionals at the elementary and OMS will have to take place. Those are students moving from pre-K in our GROW program or from our TLC elementary into middle school. Okay? Line item 2, special education inclusion teachers, that is due to the increase in students in inclusion. And we will have to be strategic on how we do that, because it doesn't say 3 and go to our biggest schools. It actually says 2. So we're going to have to really look at where we're going to put these 2 positions. The 2 paraprofessionals at OMS for specialized program are currently still under review, but the numbers are showing that we need to add those there. This could come out, but more than likely will not come out. The secondary reading specialist, that is directly related to student services. The speech language assistance is a different way to provide services, but we have more and more kids needing speech. And then the one that's going to be up in the air and really will be last minute discussion would be the registered behavior technicians. That'll be the ones that right now, so the way that you know that works is that is new as a position, but it's funded literally originally through contract services. Right, so what we're doing is what we did with the nurses, where we couldn't get contract services nurses, they wouldn't show up, or they were too expensive, because we know that what we pay contract service is not what the employee for that third party is getting. Right, they're still having to make up for their health care and making their own money as a for-profit organization or even nonprofit. The registered behavior technicians funding would literally either become utilized through this process, somewhat utilized through contract services, or zeroed out as a savings. Those would be the 3 options that we're going to have to really discuss as we go forward. But as you know, it's so early in the game, and I'll give you an example. In the last 3 weeks, the changes in special education and with students is almost daily. And I know that Ms. Miller is here at the high school level. Sometimes it's a little less, but she's starting to hear and see what we hear and see as superintendents, which is another kid shifting, another kid needs this, another kid's IEP recalls for that, another student going out of district. When I started here, we had 38 students out of district, FY24. In FY27, you're at minimum of 71 as of today. We were at 38 in fiscal 24. We are at 71 as of today, the 16th of December. What does that tell you? So these are agreements between families, specialists, and our team that a certain student with a certain need needs to go to a collaborative and or a third-party private school, of which you know that the cost that goes with that, including transportation. And I will be preparing some details for you that I've been working on for the last probably close to a month, trying to just say as of this date. What I want to do for you is I want to provide you what I would call a line item, no details as to who the student is, no details into what the collaborative is, private or public, because one kid going to blah, 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 you could say, well, I know that kid because they live down the street from me, and we don't want to do that. But I want to show you the map of where the costs are for that, for either 180 days or for even more than 180 days or for residential. So you'll see tuition, number of days, you'll get a breakdown of how much it is per day, then you get transportation, and then sometimes there's either other services, i.e. extended summer programming and all of that, so that you can really see what we're talking about when we're talking about our students that are going out of district, of which they deserve to and we need to support. But the town needs to recognize with that comes a significant cost. And you've seen these before in terms of our allocations. I won't go through it. I will say this, that this is the most important page right here. This is the page where you take your bottom number and you're recognizing the 8.66. You're recognizing the shortfall. And this is what this, along with the line item budget, is what's publicized, along with, I might as well say it now, anything to do with enrollment programming. So my slide will go forward as part of the budget presentation. The one that you received from special education will be updated. The EL one is all set, excuse me. And any other documents, our triennial plan that we know we're not going to be hitting some of it going forward because of the budget. So here is a plan that we've put together to improve, and we know that we're not going to be able to do some of it. We'll be able to tweak in 3 areas. The portrait of a graduate we can continue to move forward on because it's not really counting on new positions or anything. It's really just counting on professional training and changing some of the ways we do things. The area of literacy is going to be a huge discussion for Stoughton Public Schools over the next 2 to 3 fiscal years, probably 2 years. I think we're going to have a sit down about where we're going in K-5 literacy. And because there's going to be a big push. Just today, I received through Chris a announcement from the federal government around targeting early literacy and science research-based literacy. You're going to see a state budget that's going to say that too. They are really pushing all of us changing if we're in a certain literacy and it's not, they don't consider it to be working, moving in another direction. And I think we're getting there and very close. But you have to remember that's a significant startup cost because not only do you have to purchase X, but you got to train your staff. So that's not easy. And the training is usually the full day, the half days, and all of that stuff. So you're not really like necessarily paying for those, but it's the people you're bringing in to do the trainings that becomes pretty significant cost. And those are usually done over 1 or 2 years, but you're purchasing usually for 5 to 6 years because that's typically the length of that. The other thing too that I think is important in the cover letter that will go forward is literally some exactly the conversation we're having. Like, here's the line items, here's why it's happening, and so on and so forth. So our FTEs increase are in special education, and like I just reported out to you, most of them we're going to have to fill. You might have to fill them and cut somewhere else. That could be the jam that's in the room, if you will. But that's the general perspective of the budget for FY27.
Thank you. Ms. Perkins, would you be able to walk us through the budget quickly, just to give us the highlights in terms of, do we need to do that?
No,
Let me
you haven't
ask.
published, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same one that's up
Sorry.
there. That would be the
Right.
the overarching line
Yeah.
item of the budget. Both you and then FinCom and then town meeting vote a bottom number only, not a line item budget. So in this particular case, you're either voting the current budget up, down, or changing it up or down. Those are the choices that you have as a school committee going forward.
Thank you. Before we move to committee discussion, we do have 2 additional pieces of information that were provided at the request of the committee. Would you be able to just provide us with kind of a high level what we're looking at
Yeah.
here?
Thank you for that, and I appreciate the time to be able to. So we still have a little bit more work to do, but please know that the timeline and everything that's going on. We're trying to get some general answers that were asked last time. Contracted services line, what does this entail? So we're providing that. We will continue to work to get you further information on that. And then the one that's a little bit more complicated that was causing a little bit back and forth in the budget because of the way the FTEs break down, we and I apologize, tonight Matt is grabbing his daughter from college and Jonathan is celebrating his son graduating from boot camp. So congratulations to Jonathan's Mr. and Mrs. Ford son. And thank you for his service. So what you have here is you have it broken down by school, and then if you flip, you have it by staff, by specialist, and then you have it by subject, and then you have it by totals. And as you can see, it's a significant number. 48.6 of our FTEs, of our people, 49 bodies are some way, shape, or form part-time somewhere in our district or just part-time, either splitting positions or elsewhere. So it's pretty significant. I will tell you, it is the biggest headache of scheduling a school. So I think the superintendent-elect will say, well, I don't have to do a lot of that, so that's a good thing, because the high school schedule is like ridiculous, right? It's middle school, you can get a little bit of that done. When it comes to the elementary, it's all about cost savings, right? Because it's all about cost savings. Don't think it's about a best practice, because it's not. And everybody does it. More districts, some districts more than others. But when you're looking at your arts and your musics, and you have a school with 400 kids, you probably have that FTE more time there than you have a school with 260. So the issue becomes, if you had somebody dual certified, then maybe they could stay there. So let's say they were certified in art and ELA, in K-5 education, and maybe you could get away with utilizing that person. But in general, they go with their area of expertise. So that's why you see so many of the splits. That's a high number, but the number one issue at our elementary schools is their schedule. And any of us that have used the elementary schools, I have years ago, I saw it firsthand. It's just difficult. Heidi?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and the districts, the town, cities that tend to, districts that tend to still have neighborhood schools, you see this more often.
Right.
Because of that, there's smaller population, more schools to travel to. Districts that have consolidated elementary, it's the opposite.
And that's a great lead into what I was going to say, which is with the new elementary school in 2028, you'll see less sharing of staff because you're going to have somewhere between 550 and 600 kids in that building. So you're going to see less of that. You're probably going to need, if you need the full-time art teacher, it may be actually you need 2 full-time art teachers. So it's not going to necessarily cost anybody anything because you're literally consolidating and redistricting. But that will be an area where you begin to see less of the sharing of staff because one of your elementary schools will be very close to 550 to 600 kids, and at least 2 of the elementary schools will be around 400. The likelihood is that the Hanson continues to be your smallest school in terms of enrollment, probably under 300, closer to 280 in that ballpark. Again, depending on where our enrollment is when you go to open the new school.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions for Dr. Baeta concerning the overview or the additional information that he brought to us? Yes.
Sorry, Dr. Maeda, you talk about that there's going to be no regular general ed teacher increase, but what happens if we have 199 new kids that register in August like we did this year? You had to open, 2 new kindergartens? Yeah, am I right? I mean, what do we do?
So I'll defer that to the superintendent-elect, since she's going to be the one that's here. No, I'm kidding. No, what we would typically do in that particular case, if in fact we had another year of that, is we would need to go back to a supplemental budget in the fall town meeting. Simply say, 190 kids just walked in, I couldn't have budgeted for them on 12/31/25. Right? It is what it is. And I think that's one of the reasons why our budget this year is so tight. And that's the reason why maybe we'll talk about some supplemental in the spring. I just got a request, by the way, for a special town meeting in February. I don't know what it's for, but it just came in. So there was a check of a date, so it's nothing's concrete. But one of the things that I have done is either you put something to the side. You heard in FY25 that we actually kept a kindergarten position in the budget. I don't know if you remember that. Some of you weren't here. But we literally kept one position in the budget because the prior 3 years, we had to go back and hire another kindergarten teacher or 2. So what we did is we kept a position in the budget. I actually said it to FinCom, the school committee. The only fluff in this budget that we have in general education is I have 1 kindergarten FTE in the budget for $60,000. I think it was 65 actually, but we don't have that in this budget. So we didn't have it in the last budget, the current budget 26. So I would urge you to keep that here, that if the superintendent during the summer months starts to see certain trends, that we start to look at that. Now, you need concrete trends, and that's always the biggest problem, is everybody starts to say, well, somebody came to my school, and they came around, and blah, 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 and they went to register, and then September comes, and they're not here. The problem is September is too late to go hire a kindergarten teacher. So what you do is you take an educational guess. We had 48 new kids register in kindergarten. Do I need another teacher? Yes or no? Where are those kids going? The DAW. Okay, the DAW. What's the DAW's kindergarten class sizes look like right now? What's the Hanson look like? Oh, wait a minute, it's a Hanson issue. It's not a DAW issue. Okay, then that position will go there. That's just an example of what happened this year. It is the biggest concern when budgets get tight is that you don't have the ability to be transparent and simply say, based on trends, I am keeping 2 positions open. whatever you want to call them, right? It could be a,
New condos up by David
Yeah.
Barrows, there's new apartments being built.
You turn your mic on?
Sorry. In Stoughton Center, that's going to increase our
it
numbers.
is, and they all have different timetables when they're opening.
Yeah.
But I do think that one of the things, and I haven't done a good job of this in Stoughton myself, but I need to find ways about these projects so that I can start utilizing and saying, okay, if a condo opened with, let's say 30 condos opened, 30 apartments open in town, what is the likelihood of, A, how many bedrooms are per condo? 2. All right, so there's a good likelihood that there's 1 child, right? 3, there's a good likelihood that there could be 2 kids. Then you take, it's a general formula that you use. You basically just make an estimate. You say, well, if there's 10 of those that are 3 bedrooms, you know you're not getting 20 kids, but maybe you're getting 5. Right, and so you use that as part of your enrollment trends. We do use with the NESDEC, so that you know, we do use the pulled permits that part of that. It's actually right in the enrollment trend. Hopefully that'll be coming in soon so you can see it. And that's just how many permits were taken for single homes, how many were pulled for duplexes, how many were pulled. The condos are hard. The number of because those change literally from application to approval, right? You come in as a builder and you say you're going to build 22, and then you settle at 17, as an example. And I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know that to be factual. But it has an impact on us, so it's a great question. I would urge you to consider the supplemental and not be shy about it if it's happening to you. Yes?
So earlier you said our options are to vote for this budget or for something lower. Is that correct?
Or higher. You have you can do whatever you want.
boy, we can
That's
do
the great
higher?
thing about the school.
So if we go with lower, tell me what are the ramifications of that and where does that budget have to be cut?
Yeah, so if you go, let's say we go for the sake of playing nice in the sandbox with a 3.5, you have to know what you did last year, which is to say that which has already been noted publicly in a PowerPoint presentation, so kudos to the town manager and the finance director on the town side, that in fact Chapter 70 would be ours. The question would be, what happens if there's no added Chapter 70? Now my responsibilities as of the day we get the real numbers is to start saying to you, A, I'm probably going to ask you for about a good 3 weeks of just going through every line item in the budget, sitting down with all of my staff. Julie, how many people can you afford to cut? All of that stuff. Then come to you and say, here's Part A, Part B, Part C of cuts. You know, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And do we even have to get to Part D to catch up on that $3.4 million? Or is there any love for a discussion? I don't think, let me actually say it this way, I would not recommend a Prop 2.5 override. I'm going to say that again. I would not recommend a Prop 2.5 override. I don't think there's any love for that, number one. And number two, it is what it is. We know that just to the south of us, there's a community that's gone through 2 years and about to enter their 3rd year having some real fiscal issues. The question will be, what does town meeting think? What does the finance committee think? Because they vote, finance committee is a level funded budget to town meeting. Town meeting can do what town meeting wants to do, within reason. I'm not seeking to eliminate town budgets for the school department. I don't think that makes any sense either. I want to go public with that because people will start to talk that we want to cut police or fire or town hall. That is not the intent of this superintendent, and I won't speak for the school committee, but based upon what I know, I'm not sure that that's your intent either.
Just to follow up with that, so based off this budget, all of our cost increases are in the special education, which is mandated federally. So if there were to be cuts, it would have to be from the general education.
All would come from general education, and by that would mean administration, teachers and staff not supporting special education. MLL or ELL would be a real discussion we'd have to take place. But you'd be, we're not talking 4 or 5 people here.
Yeah, no, this is significant. It's not, like we can just trim a few teachers here and there, a couple pairs here and there. It's
3.4 million people just divided by an average of 60,000. You're talking about 40 to 50 people.
yeah.
Plus, you just created an unemployment line item
Yeah.
that needs to be filled. So the old mathematics is for every 2 people you lay off, you need a third to pay for unemployment, right? That's the math, if you will.
And would there
So-
be any concerns with any legal issues? Like if we had to cut pairs that were supporting special ed, that, they can come at us if we're not providing the
Yeah,
appropriate care that their children need?
So you recently have been hearing about districts that have had to make cuts during the current fiscal year. And in one of those scenarios, they cut paraprofessionals in special education. Those people are back to work. They weren't out of work for a week, as an example. Because you have to remember, it's a federal document. This is a federal document, and as an IEP, that we agreed to provide that service. Now, we can get creative and all of that and try to, but if it says X minutes of service delivery, then that's the minimum standard we have to provide. And the only way to change that IEP is for that parent willing to say, I'm willing to try this. And we should never be doing that because we've agreed that this is in the best interest of kids, unless the student is testing out of special education. Then that's a whole nother dynamic. So we don't want this to become special ed versus general ed and all of that stuff. We want to be able to tell the story and say to the town, what's our next steps? And none of it will be easy, I can assure you, but, yeah, so we have, so through you, or back to Dr. Sears, you have provided me with a set number for the purposes of negotiations, which is representative in that first line item, the $1.3 million delta. And
We should add that there are other things in that line as well.
and there's other things in that line as well, but don't think that's unit A, unit B. This is, I'm very careful because I want to be fair to the negotiations process and not toss a number out. But my point is that when you look at that, that's when you're negotiating in good faith and you're trying to do the right thing, but you're holding to what you can. Hopefully, you can get both sides to understand that, this is different and difficult, and then you go from there. It's not going to be a zero, right? That's not going to happen. You'll be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on arbitration and mediation and legal fees, because it's not going to be a zero. It's just a matter of what is the number that the two sides can agree to, understanding that the budget is in a difficult situation. I hope that helps.
So is there any way to go to town meeting or and ask for more money?
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways. So when we get the real numbers and we know what this delta is, okay, and is it factual, number one? Are all the numbers lining up in a certain way, regardless of the naysayers and all of that? Then it's a lot of trying to figure out how do you resolve that. I don't think that this is a community that announcing that 40 people are being laid off is going to go over well.
No.
I just don't see it. I may be totally wrong. I live in the town. I just don't see it. It's never happened. So the question would be, what would be the next steps? Being mindful of the following. Whatever your resolution is, it's potentially that you're not getting 3.4 million. You're potentially still looking at something, hopefully less. Because if you just get to 3.4 and you keep everything, you do everything, you just kick the can. You just kick the can. And kicking the can is a problem. So it's either you try to fix it in some way, shape, or form in certain areas. I'm very concerned with 38 going to 71 without a district students. That's a whopper of a number in 3 fiscal years. And it has to do with just the needs of students. And this is not a Stoughton problem, because Stoughton has done something that a lot of districts haven't. You're adding 2 more specialized classrooms to make sure kids aren't going out of district as part of the transition. Those kids going from 5th grade specialized into 6th grade specialized could easily be going to a collaborative at significantly more costs. And as you probably know, once a student leaves, the likelihood is that that's where they're staying. And I say that as a good thing, not as a bad thing. I'm not questioning that they should be there. I'm just saying that we have to here deal with the financial aspects of that if in fact the funds aren't there. Now, I would argue, and I'll leave you with this, I would argue that the Commonwealth is flush with money. And I know some of my colleagues don't agree with me, but the millionaire's tax, which has $2 billion in it, is supposed to be used, any of you who voted for it or against it, It's solely for the purposes of public education, K through 16, and transportation. Let's see it. We have over 200 communities, excluding Stoughton. We have 200 communities who are basically been at hold harmless for the last X number of years. I know that because I came from one that was there at 10 years. That's the minimum number increase. Remember that $30 that last year became $105? Interesting that it was the same amount as we were getting for the shelter students. We don't think there's any politics in that, do we? But the fact of the matter is, I've been sitting on that number prior to coming to Stoughton at $30 and $50 and $60. I think one year we had 75 for a decade. And I don't think, again, what I said earlier tonight, if you're looking at enrollment and all of these kids that, poverty and all of that, no longer with us because of that crisis, and you're going to use that against us, that's a big concern for Stoughton. I think we need to put our heads together to say that Stoughton shouldn't have to eat that. We should be made whole.
Any other clarifying questions, Ms. Powers?
Well, first of all, there's no numbers to your contracted services. So that would be helpful to have a number put, so there's a list of contracted services, but there's no number to them, and that would be helpful, at least even just what you paid last year. I don't see that ArcX and the Lytics in here. Are those not considered contracted services? They were software.
I don't know. The only thing I can think of, do you want to answer that?
Okay.
You're talking budget.
Yeah. There was no way to really get to the fine detail of every contracted service, so that was every department head, principal, anybody that has a budget sort of put, here's generally what we do every year. It would be an extensive amount of work to put numbers to every single thing and put every contracted service, and they fluctuate from year to year. So, for instance, we might have $50,000 in boiler repairs. I think we had one for $12,000 last week. And we could have a year that's $35,000 or a year that has none. So those are things, a lot of that comes up. So the budget will show you what was spent last year by department. So you'll know that, for instance, facilities, it was anything that facilities would do. But so that's the first part. Specifically about Lytics or the ArcSed. ArcSed is a contracted service, but because we didn't get every small, everybody put in generally what they do at a high level and with some detail, not every single thing is on that list. And that would be exhaustive, to be honest with you, an exhaustive amount of work to do that, but it is in everybody's budget. I will add that that comes under HR, but that's been under the superintendent's budget. Everything HR has been under the superintendent's budget because the accounts have to be created for an HR department in Munis, and that's something that the town and we work with. So as that gets, again, more granular and a bunch of accounts are set up, there'll be accounts under the HR budget, and that will be moved to that. But it is actually on your budget document that way. So if I pulled it out of Munis, you wouldn't see it that way, but you don't see what's in Munis. It's under here. I think it's, I don't know if it says software or contracted services. And I mentioned at the last meeting that I will be pulling out software throughout. There aren't any software account numbers that we can use right now. I have to have the town set them up in every department so I can pull those out as we get more granular. But HR, sorry, I don't know which page. I have to flip through myself. Somewhere towards the back.
As you're doing that, can we?
Thank you.
As you're doing that, can I make a suggestion, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're able to get a hard copy of the Munis report if we need to, correct?
You can, but it's still just going to say contracted services.
Okay.
So,
And right now, the HR
Yeah.
office
The 5950s.
line items are established under me because they haven't been set up in Munis.
Some of them are, but if you look on this, because we manually create this in a spreadsheet, you will actually see the HR budget in total under HR. So what
Right.
everybody's looking at now. So if you look at contracted services and you see 5,950, that is ArcSed.
Can you provide me a copy, a PDF copy that I can share with the school committee of the Munis report, just a PDF?
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's the same.
It's okay.
High level.
I just
It's-
want to make sure that when people see this and then they see the Munis, they see the same thing.
Yes,
So that
and
we're
just
not,
so
we're not
everybody
talking two.
knows, this historical, the prior years, is actually a pull from Munis. We pull Munis, so it'll be exactly what you see on here.
Let's just do a PDF, get it to me, and then I'll get it to the committee so that you can see the two side by side, decide how you, how it goes, so it's there. I will say that I think we're entering the fourth year of the HR issue in Munis,
We are in third year.
entering the
and-
fourth.
Yeah, and as we've been working on getting Munis where it needs to be, but I'm just going to be straightforward, as you know, there were years' worth going back to 2015 when Munis was installed that we've been working on first.
Right.
Budgets that weren't showing up, gift accounts that weren't showing up, old grants that were under and over budget amounts. Almost the last of that I just finished over the summer. So
Could-
it's been exhaustive work to get it right.
Could you share a general memo to the school committee and myself about what you just said?
Sure, yeah.
And the reason is, I don't think that there's a clear understanding within the public domain and even within this room, the amount of things that have had to be fixed that were problematic within that program. And again, I don't want to see a 700-page printout.
No,
I'm talking about the
paragraph or two.
priorities that we've established in the last 3 years to try to fix things so that long-term, this is fixed and this is now corrective going forward. Because I know that it's a number of issues, because I authorized some of it. So I think it would be important for the committee to have
Yeah,
that.
I think a paragraph or two, I can wrap that up in that, yep,
2 paragraphs.
okay, yep.
So you said that the ARCS Ed was 5950. It's in the budget under HR, page 28, but it's not under the contracted services page that you gave us. And I just want to make sure I'm right on that.
No, as I just mentioned, there are many, many things that happen year to year that change. So we didn't do an exhaustive list of, I mean, we could have a contracted service that's $25. Like, we could hire somebody for a quarter, 15 minutes at $100 an hour, and we're going to have a contracted service bill for $25. So we went with, like I said, it was just put out to everybody on a Google Drive. Everybody sort of put their generalized repairs, trash pickup, water sewer, whatever it was, all those sorts of things in general. Those fluctuate year to year, certainly utilities and everything else. It all fluctuates year to year, depending on what happens and we respond to. So people budget typically what they have had in the past, looking at what's the historical need for contracted services. And I know that you're seeing it, but for the public, it's such a variety, you can see by that list. It's such a variety of things that I don't think,
So there may be a number of things that are on here is what
yeah, again,
I'm
once
hearing.
next year, it'll be in software, and then it'll be more clear. It would be, especially with the next couple weeks coming up, and we're closed a number of days, it would be, to run it for 1 year to the micro level. And Yep.
Do we keep contract services, regardless of what the contract is? One-time interpreter, one-time vendor, full-year statistics, or ArcSed, or whatever. Do we keep that information in a certain area, a spreadsheet, or is it hard copy contracts?
Some are, many are not. Again, like if there's a repair that needs to be done today and we have to call an electrician or whatever, there's a purchase order is entered by that department to say, I'm calling somebody in today for a $1,000
Gotcha.
repair. So it's not something that you can know ahead, and it's all different amounts, but the majority of it is on there, and the majority of the types of things that are done. And it fluctuates day to day, year to year. So you can see in the historical budget what was spent in every department, and hopefully it's pretty obvious of like what that department does, whether it's L or whatever. But it's not, I don't know of any district that would go to the micro level within Munis to say an interpreter versus whatever. In fact, I don't know any districts that would do that. And we have to use the same DESI code. So DESI says, here's the code and what you will put under it. And so you have one account in a department. So let's just say it's interpreters. And so that might be in L, and that might be in special education when they have parent meetings. So they're both going to have interpreters. It's still going to be called interpreters and be part of their contracted services as a bucket. But there could be interpreters in their contracted services line. There could be an outsourced physical therapist in the contracted services line, because that is the location, the department, the sub-department, the location, and the DESI code. When you set up Munis, you do what's called the long string. It's 19 digits. I know I'm getting into the weeds, but every character in that string represents something else, and you really can't change that. We can't change how Munis is set up. We can add accounts within the segments that are set up within Munis that are townwide. So their contracted services have the same segment code that ours do, and that's not something that can be changed. That would be the whole converting the entire town's Munis for well over $100,000 and about a year's worth of work for the town to do.
Mrs. Powers, if you look at line item number 24 on this sheet,
Mandatory
annual training software license under HR budget is ArcSed.
That was an easy one. While you're there,
Thanks, Julie.
where's the lytics?
That is not on there because that, to my knowledge, was a one-time school committee purchase this year, and it is not budgeted by the school committee that I'm aware of next year, and that will be a determination of the school committee whether you keep that or not.
So that's also not on here.
No, because that's not, we're looking at next year's budget, and that's not budgeted unless the school committee is deciding to do that out of their own budget.
There is a catch-all, Mrs. Powers, in line number 15, where it says includes software for health records, newsletters, report cards, Power School, and other software to run the day-to-day operations of the district. I imagine that lytics probably falls within that list.
I just want to say that, though, reiterating, there is no money budgeted next year for lytics. Somebody would have had to have, the school committee put forth, their budget, the high school puts forth their budget, everybody determines what to do with their budget in the year that they're spending it. So if the school committee so decides to have a contracted service be an attorney come in, like it happened this year with the money, and the school committee could decide, or it could also come under the superintendent's budget, depending on who, could decide to keep lytics, but it would be out of the budgets that you see. It's not specifically budgeted because when everybody does their budget, again, they decide what to do with it the next year based on needs and things that come up. So I don't see every single thing that they're going to spend it on. There's a certain amount of money, and depending on what's going on, as you know, schools are very dynamic. It's not like a lot of other businesses where we know exactly what's going to happen. So if something comes up, and anybody's budget needs to respond to that item, that incident, that change, then they're going to use their contracted services if they need to, and they might decide not to do something else that they had hoped and planned to do because something else came up. There's no way to know that in advance in a dynamic situation. So I'm just saying that personally. Everybody might have other opinions, but it's just life, as we have at home, life happens, right? So.
It just would have been nice to know, under these contracted services, what we paid for, what's coming up. There must be a general idea of how much we spent last year in piano tuning, or choral accompanist, not looking for a $15, service, but a $6,000 lytics and a $6,000 ArcSed. It's something that is interesting to me.
It is, and
It would have been interesting to know.
I just do want to explain that the business office has no way of knowing or pulling that.
You have no way of knowing how to do.
No, it's not about how to do it. It's that no one in the business office could memorize several thousand vendor names. So I have no idea who the vendor is that does piano tuning, and I would have to call every department, said, please give me the vendor name of who does your piano
Not the
tuning
name, just-
to look it up.
To
Because
say,
we
this
have
is
to
what
look
we
it up
used
by
it
vendor.
for.
Yeah, we have to look it up by the vendor, so we would have to run hundreds, if not 1,000 reports to say, okay, the piano tuning vendor is Mary Smith or whatever. Then we would have to look up Mary Smith and see how much we paid her last year. So we would have to do that on every single vendor, and every department would have to remember all the vendors they used and give us all the names of what they did for me to say, Mary Smith is our piano tuner. The business office would not have that information. We do thousands of purchase orders, so.
I like to say, as an engineer, one of the most important thing anyone can do in their database is to set it up correctly the first time. You have problems forever and impossible to change once it's not set up properly the first time. And it's hard sometimes to set it up properly because it's often very difficult to anticipate what's going to happen in the future.
What is VoIP, number 40?
That's voice over internet, that's one of the,
Telephone?
the technology department,
And what is AV?
audiovisual, also tech department.
And you're saying that that was a vendor that was used, there's really can't tell what vendor was used or how much was used last year on the budget.
Correct. I would have to ask the tech director, who are you paying for your AV services, which might be 5 different vendors, and then they would have to give me the names, and then we would probably have to call in some part-time help, to be honest with you, to get this in time, to run hundreds of queries to find out
So
this.
what we paid them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, the town collects taxes from everybody, right? But they have your name and address, so they could look up your name and address and know exactly what your house
bet
or
they
this house
do.
or whatever. Right, everybody's house. and
bet
what-
they
right,
do.
What their valuation is, what their
For
address is.
every resident in every business
Right.
in town.
So they
Yeah.
have that
Know
data.
that, yeah,
But
absolutely
we don't
they do.
have a
We don't.
system that would
But we
go
don't.
to that.
But we don't.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a system that would go to that level automatically, that I could just look it up.
So
And
typically.
any other questions,
I have a
Ms.
question.
Powers? I know you've been patiently waiting. Ms. Powers, other?
Hey, I have all night to ask questions. I did want to ask the superintendent, where is the town going to come up with this extra $3 million?
Well, I don't know that because I don't have any factual numbers in front of me at all. I have no factual pieces of information from anywhere on what the money looks like. That's my rationale for changing this process, is that you're being asked to vote on a budget tonight, of which I'm giving you the best opportunity, the best information I can, and I don't know what the actual numbers are.
No, I mean, the town. So, assuming that we get whatever, I mean, it's a guesstimate. Of course, it's an educated guess, but doing it a long time. So we have an idea of where we are, and it'll get tweaked as it has been for decades, the way that it's just the way that it's been done. It's been done for decades this way. And if it gets changed, that's great. But right now, this is the way we're doing it. And what you're saying is you want us to vote for a budget that is $3 million more than what the town thinks it can handle in the budget. Now, the assessor already said that we only have 1.6 in new growth for everybody, not just the school, for police, for fire, for DPW, for trash, for maybe giving the taxpayers a break, since the taxpayers have been paying a lot of money. So they could use it for that. But what they may have to do is, if we're saying we have all of these mandates and we can't possibly do a budget at less than what the 3.5 plus the 3 million, so really, it's a $6 million addition. It's the 3.5% plus the 3.4 million, so it's really like an additional 6 million over last year. And you're saying that's all in just what we need and also for the mandates. And what I'm wondering is, how in the world, I mean, if it's not a 2.5 override, and I know that you've mentioned free cash in the past, but free cash isn't free. That's what we've used. I mean, the town has been working for over a decade to get that free cash out of the budget, so we're not at at a structural deficit in our budget. And so now they're at a point where the AAA bonding is right in our mists, which is part of the Collins report coming out. That's all to work towards this AAA bonding so that we can get a really good loan rate and pay for this new school and possibly the new middle school. And so I just want to know, where are we going to come up with this extra money?
Sure. So you're entering, as of this year, your fourth straight year of not receiving level services. I want to say that again. If this budget isn't met, you are entering your fourth straight year of being the only, again, the only department that has not received level services. That's a factual piece of information. I can't control certain aspects of this budget. No superintendent can. It is what it is. So that's part one. Part two, I'm going to continue to harp on this because I disagree. There was a plan about coming off of free cash that went from being a 7-year plan to being a 1-year plan. So we moved $3 million into the rainy day account last year, stabilization, probably going to move another 2 or 3 this year, and it's raining. We're just going to leave it there because of the bond rating. Because see, before it was, we need to put money in there because of the bond rating, but then you're going to build a new school and not have teachers in it? Okay. Those are the tough discussions we have to have. I'm not suggesting that there's an answer to the $3 million. I'm just saying that we have a $3 million shortfall that we have to try to figure out once we have factual information from the Commonwealth in House 1, which may not be positive information, of which then I have to go back to the drawing board. And I can assure you of one thing, and Jillian said it, you will be cutting from general education. So start thinking about AP classes, start thinking about the untouchable band, start thinking about the untouchable kindergarten paraprofessionals, start thinking about the untouchable whatever positions we all have a special interest in, including myself, that are no longer untouchable. Because everybody will have to pay a piece of the piper. You can't just eliminate one thing. You have to try to be as even-handed as you can. That's the general gist.
Before we move to your question, and then I know
I
Ms.
have a
Powers.
comment to that as well.
Go for it.
So I think one thing, as being part of the school committee, is to let the town know what our needs are, because that is our responsibility, students first. You know, we want to make sure that the town knows this is what our needs, these are our challenges, and we're going to do our best to meet those needs and meet those challenges. We don't have all the numbers. So sitting here and debating about 3.4, 6 million, 2 million, we don't know that real number, so it's rather a moot point to sit here and argue about where that money's going to come from. We have to get those numbers in. And this budget, and I was saying this throughout all the budgeting meetings, was like kind of fake. It's like we're putting together a budget that we don't know the numbers for.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a business in this world, and there's also not a single other district in this state that does that. Everyone else waits for the spring to see what the real numbers are. So to scare people that your taxes are going to go up or things are going to get cut is honestly not the best way to start this discussion. We are stating a need of what our students need. And just to get that out there of like, this is what we have to have. When we get the real numbers, then we can start having real conversations about where that money is going to be going and where it's going to be distributed, how it's going to come in. And I know that the townspeople want our kids to have a good education. They want to take care of the kids. So how they also decide that in town meeting is up to them in town meeting, so that they can have their voice and have their vote. But our job in the school committee is to be good stewards for the students and for the staff and for the town, and to make sure our kids are being well taken care of. And I also have a follow-up question about contracted services.
Before we go there, I think this would be a great moment in time, Dr. Baeta, for you to remind the audience in terms of how much of this bill is Stoughton, the town, footing, and when you say we don't know what the numbers are, where could that $3.5 million come from?
Yeah, so two parts. Number one, in terms of the education budget, about $32 million of it is actual at local level. The remaining if you will, in this case, about 40 million is coming from the Commonwealth. Remember that we are part of the Fair Share Act, the Student Opportunity Act. The Student Opportunity Act said the following communities have not received what they should have been receiving from the Commonwealth. That's what this is all about. You look at the clientele, you look at the bodies of students, and basically at one point, prior to this year and next year, which is year 7 years ago, the Commonwealth said, and I quote, "Stoughton, you're not getting your fair share." And we were in there with the Chelseas and the Fall Rivers and your New Bedfords and all of that as part of that. Not every community was like that. For example, the one I was in for 10 years was not getting anything. We got $62,000 was our highest year. $30 a student. So that's part one. Part B is that as we enter this 7th year of the Student Opportunity Act, we don't know what that number is going to be. So 5 fiscal years ago, in November, it was a late fiscal year. A little over $2 million were added to the school budget. I don't know if some of you recall that. It was in November. It was the year we eliminated the fees. And the fees were taken out of the wrong account. They weren't taken from the fee account, they were taken from the operating budget. It was the first thing that we fixed the year that Heidi and I came in and got that done.
FY23.
Correct. And then the following year, as part of that, we had the $4 million huge increase to the SOA to Stoughton. And at the same time, rightfully so, a huge healthcare problem, of which we didn't need $4 million. I hate to say it that way, but we would just have been hiring people left and right and purchasing stuff that, to be quite honest, I would argue we wouldn't have needed. So we helped to resolve an issue. That was Student Opportunity Act funding. I want to say that again. That was Student Opportunity Act funding, and we did the right thing. Again, we did the right thing. Then the following year, my literally, as I'm coming in and I have my first budget, the per pupil increase for that year, the Student Opportunity Act, went from $1,310 per student to $740 per student. Basically got cut in half. That was our increase. That's our increase that basically we saw coming into this year. If you remember that number. So now we're waiting to see what is that number for FY27. That will be in House 1, then it goes to conference committee because the Senate and the House always disagree, and then they go to conference committee, and it might be done by July or not, but the fact is that the town usually takes that number and says that this is reasonably to accept that it's going to be this number or higher, not less. My first year here, the number was $240,000 more. We didn't even go after that money, if you remember. We left it. We said, we're not going after it. So that's part one. Part B, once you get the real numbers, that's when you can really have your discussions about what's good, bad, or indifferent about this budget, and you're going to have hard discussions about the cuts if that's what we have to make.
I just wanted to add for, here or the people at home, the town budgets an increase on that Chapter 70 SOA. That's already factored in when they give us this guidance of the 3.5. So it's not going to be exact dollars. It's going to be what we got, what the town got this year, plus say 3% or whatever they used, already factored in that they would keep as their, inflation. So I just want to point out that when you look at the cherry sheets, when they come out, when the budgets come out, it's not dollars from this year to next year. There'll be a little bit that's already been factored in as the, what they use to do their projections, just to get a little bit more, drilled in on that.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
I'm going to leave it at that. I think I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
I had a question on contract services.
Yes.
When we look at long-term contracts, let's just say our printer server and, things that we know are like every year. How often do we review those contracts and negotiate those contracts to see if we get lower? Like, especially when it comes to transportation, when we look at, first student and, those costs, do we have like a regular interval that we look at the contract and try to renegotiate?
Well, a couple of parts there. So transportation, we can go out to bid every 3 years. I'll just back it up for a minute. In the state of Massachusetts, you can't have a contract longer than 3 years unless in certain ones, and then, say on our transportation, we have options for year 4 and year 5, and the selectmen have to approve us going into year 4 or year 5. So that's why even our negotiations with our unions are 3-year contracts. So
And just
in the
to ask
general.
that question, for our transportation, what year are we in right now for that?
I think year 2, I was going to say,
Okay.
yes. So can we go back and negotiate? No, we did a good faith contract. They gave us a good faith price. We do put it out, and I'll just say, because it's come up before, yes, we only had one bid. That's typical. Some people think it's collusion. Having a family in the trucking industry, I don't 100% buy into that, because obviously the busing company that is closest to you is going to be able to bid the lowest, and every other company knows it because they're not paying time and travel, right? So it's pretty common in trucking and everything else. So everybody has their own opinion on that. As far as software, some of those are annual, and the price is the price. We try to negotiate everything we can. And I actually do that a lot coming from private sector, and is everything we possibly can. But we just had something, actually it just came up today, that one of the teachers went out to ask another bus company if they could, to get another bus, and it was $200 cheaper than our bus company. And our bus company said that that was a violation of their contract. That's today that happened. It's like, no, you actually have to have the field trip with us. That's in our contract, which is true. So, my staff came to me about that, and I said, they're right. I said, and again, as Dr. Baeta mentioned in the last meeting, if we don't have athletic trips and field trips in there, they're going to put their rate up for the daily bus runs. And again, business being business, for anybody that's on the business side of things, when they're buying new buses or anything else, they are amortizing and calculating their costs spread against all of the revenue they intend or expect to bill. Fair. It's a fair business model, that if they're not going to get that much business, then they're going to have to spread that overhead against fewer trips. So your daily rate's going to go up. I don't take that bad in any way. That's how businesses have to run. So to make their anticipated profit margins, et cetera, and they have a lot of rising costs too, obviously. So that's essentially that. On software, the state changed the law, fortunately for us, probably in the 2016 Municipal Modernization Act, which was that for software, a lot of the software companies will allow a fairly decent discount to sign a 6-year contract. So the state made an exception that we could sign contracts longer than 3 years for software. We just did that over the summer using some of the shelter money on our math curriculum that was up for renewal. It was originally paid for out of ESSER, so I'm just going to throw in, of course, we also had shelter funds. We also had ESSER grants that was millions of dollars. Every city and town in America did on the municipal side too, which all expired a year ago, September. So there were things that were purchased out of that and now had to hit the budget. So with the shelter money, we did take advantage of that savings over the summer and buy the 6-year renewal. The original one was for 6 years. So we do look for every opportunity. And I'm a pretty hard negotiator myself, so I can tell you that. And it does work out to our benefit in most cases for that. But you can only go so far. I mean, little anecdotal thing. This year we were buying some software recently, some workbooks and things, and I happened to notice that the quote from the company that they were in Woburn or whatever, and I said, you're not really that far, and you're charging me like $4,000 delivery. Can I send someone to pick it up? And because they do a percentage of the cost. And even though it was out of a grant or whatever, and they said, yeah, if you want to, no one's ever asked us. And I said to the SPED director, Ed Clark, is there any chance you can go over there and load your car up? And he goes, I'll take my wife's car that day. That was literally 60 days ago. So we saved, probably, I think we had a $500 charge, but we saved about $3,500. So We do try to look at everything we can, and I have no problem making any of those phone calls. I do that as much as I can. While I have the mic, I just want to get back on, if I could, sorry, about the contracted services. I will, after January 1st, be able to get you a report that what we can pull out of Munis is, here's the contracted services, and it can list the vendor, but they might be in there multiple times for all different things, and I can put it in an Excel spreadsheet. So I was trying to say before, and I thought about it, it probably didn't come out right. What I can't do is say if Mary Smith is the piano tuner, necessarily sit there and sort thousands of lines to say Mary Smith did this much piano tuning, because it'll be in that big contracted services. But we can certainly sort an Excel spreadsheet by vendor. Sometimes there's a column that has a word that might tell you what it was, but if it doesn't, it's not something we would know off the top of our heads. So if you had follow-up questions about something in specific, we could get there. So I didn't want to say that there wasn't anything we could do. I just don't think I can give it to you to the exact, level that you might be looking for, but I can get you something, or the committee something, and then certainly if there's some high-level questions or something, we can do that. Does that helpful? I'm sorry, I didn't think about it until after I said it, but yes, we can do that.
Pivot table that out and have each vendor and the total?
We can do that. I guess what I'm saying is, though, if it says Mary Smith, I'm not going to know if she was an interpreter or the piano tuner. That's what I was trying to say before,
Understood.
but
How about if
we'll
we,
get as much as we
Madam
can.
Chair, through you, how about if we just get the report to the school committee, and then there'll potentially be more questions?
Yes, that's.
And at least we can start
yes.
there. That'll take at least a couple of the folks in the room that have been asking about this to have some details. And then
Yes.
if we have to get into, let's say there's something that sticks out for whatever amount, we'll take that to
And I'm
whoever is in charge of that vendor
Sure,
or
we're not
has that
looking at
area.
Mary
and say
Smith
what
with $25 piano tuning.
That-
It's
that's
going
what
to
I'm
be
saying,
like much
so-
larger ticket items.
You have a lot of small ticket items.
a lot.
A lot, which is, so.
And that's
But
what
we'll
I
get
was
that
really
to you.
trying- Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Thank
So
you.
after the first of the year, we can get that.
I hope the
and go from
piano
there.
tuner's watching and.
Yeah, I know. And we have many interpreters. I mean, they might make $200 for the whole year, like, you know what I mean? So it's just, that's what I was trying to say. Sorry, it didn't come out well the first time. Sorry.
In eyeballing the contracted services line items in the budget, at least for FY26, the ones that seem to be taking up, relatively speaking, the lion's share, the ones that enter six figures are special ed. And I know we're doing everything we can to try and bring those costs down by hiring internal. Building maintenance is a huge one, and athletics. Those are really, like, by far the largest, and then superintendent contracted services, which I'm sure is kind of a catch-all for
Yes.
the district offices.
Yes.
But, yeah, just eyeballing it here. So I just thought I would share that. Other questions for Heidi or for Dr. Baeta?
So, Madam Chair, through you to the committee. My recommendation is that you vote the budget, and then we begin the process probably in January, probably the second meeting in January, because, like I said, the numbers won't be in until usually the 23rd, 24th of January, right around that timetable. And it won't be late this year, per se, because the governor is sitting in the governor's office. Usually when there's an election for governor, then it's a little later. We usually don't see it until end of February even, sometimes March. And then once we have that, then your school committee meetings right away will start with discussions about where do we go. That's going to be the discussion. Where do we go? You say to me, Joe, where can we afford some cuts? I start really looking at class sizes. I start looking at programs that are not mandated and all of that stuff. Create the master list for you, if you will. After the master list is created, then the committee, you folks get recommendations on where the cuts should come from. You don't have to agree with me. They're yours. My job is to then take those recommendations, put them into place for July 1st, and implement, and then give it over to Julie.
Give it to someone else to manage.
To manage. I will do my hardest to leave it in a way that's as good as possible, but there are things outside the control of what we're doing. So that's our recommendation on this budget. And of course, you know, we have a December 31st timeline, so not only do we have to get your vote tonight we have to put all of this together, send it to, minimum of an electronic copy to the chair of the Finance Committee, chair of the Select Board, yourselves, and then what I do, starting over the break, we start to just put together the handbooks, or I call them workbooks, which is just our budget with all the pictures and all the wonderful things that we do, and the triennial plan and all that stuff will be in there because it's all informational. And then we'll do the next thing. This is not the first year, by the way, where you will be making cuts. If you recall, the first year that I was here, my budget that I recommended had 2 pages, both sides, of cuts that we made. Many of them in materials and supplies, which we have, I'm telling you right now, there's no wiggle room in that right now. I mean, the line items that were 1,000 are down to 200. We're trying to save everything that we can. So we will be talking about other things that, it's not even the holiday break, so I think I'd like to wait until after that to talk about any negative stuff.
Thank you. And I would like to remind the committee that what we'd be voting on would be a proposed budget. It is not a final budget. Like, as members have pointed out, we can't propose a final budget until we have all the information in hand. So with that, public comment closed at 6:30 for the hearing. I'll entertain any further discussion from the committee or a motion. And a motion options to you, just as a reminder, is to vote the budget as proposed or as recommended by the superintendent. You can make a motion for a lower budget amount. You can make a motion for a larger budget amount. Once we have a motion and a second, we can have discussion.
I'll make a motion to vote the proposed budget.
All right, I have a motion on the table from Armando.
I'll second that.
And we have a second, okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 I don't know how the town's going to pay it. I want to say yes, I really do, because I know that the schools need the money, but I think the people in town are having a really hard time. I think we've asked a lot of them already, and I want to be cognizant of the fact that Stoughton residents, though they've always been generous towards the schools, I think we can do better for them. It's a no for me.
Aye.
All right, so the
I'm going to
motion.
say, as a town meeting member, and I can bring back up Dr. Baeta, there is a stabilization fund and free cash with a lot of money in it that could be used and moved into the school.
And it may not be needed depending on where we land at the state level. I mean, the cuts we may end up having to make could be much lower and definitely not 7-digit. But we just don't know. We don't know. So with that, I would like to thank the superintendent, the finance office, our school leaders, town officials, and especially the community members who participated tonight. But as always, your input, your discussion, committee members, really helps to ensure that our fiscal duty is being followed while making sure that we're putting students first. So I really appreciate your time, your careful consideration, your intentional questions, and your gentle pushback on the administration. All of that is welcomed. With that, our next regular meeting of the school committee is January 13th at 6 p.m. here at the district office. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair.
Oh, before I do.
If you don't mind.
No.
I just want to wish not only my colleagues here at the table, my colleagues throughout the Stoughton Public School System, our families and our scholars, our wonderful students, and all of our friends throughout the community and colleagues, neighbors, a wonderful holiday season. It has been a really difficult few weeks, as you know, with some of the news that we've had out of Brown, out of Australia. And my heart goes out to those families that are unfortunately having to deal with loss during what should be a time of high holidays and celebrations for those who celebrate. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas to all, and see you on the other side.
All right, and on behalf of the tribe, wonderful Festival of Lights for all of you out there, a happy Hanukkah. And we wish everyone, whatever your religion, background, your faith, or your traditions, a holiday season that's filled with love, laughter, and light. So with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
That was made by Armando. Do I have a second?
Second.
That was made by Jillian. Motion has been moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned at 7:20 PM. Everyone, enjoy your month off. Make the most of it. I still have negotiation. Yeah, I know, so do I, and